Hey Marijuana Nation, I'm back as I spent a long weekend in Minnesota helping to coach one of Maine's all-star youth ultimate frisbee teams in their club nationals. It's one of the things I do when I'm not reporting on marijuana news. My team broke seed, which means that we ended up doing better than we were ranked going into the tournament, and my daughter's team actually came home with the silver medal after losing a tough, close game against the perennial champions from Seattle. All in all, it was a great weekend, but now it's time to get back to work. Oh, and if my voice sounds a little scratchy today, it's because I screamed my head off for 3 days in a row. So apologies for that. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, August 9th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 306 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is the big news out of Hawaii that state's first medical marijuana dispensary is now open for business after a long and bumpy road filled with plenty of legislative and licensing roadblocks. The Hawaii Department of Health gave the go-ahead yesterday to the dispensary Maui Grown Therapies, located on the island of Maui, as you might have guessed, and they quickly turned over their first sale to medical patient Frank Rickert. The state just recently approved its first testing laboratory when it green-lighted Steep Hill, Hawaii, the last step in opening up their medical marijuana pipeline. Since cultivators had already grown and harvested a full crop of medical marijuana that's been sitting and waiting, the system is ready to spool up right away, though dispensaries can for now only sell flower as Steep Hill hasn't finalized their paperwork for processing cannabis oils yet. Steep Hill said they expect that to happen though sometime in the next couple of weeks. A new poll from Quinnipiac University finds that 60% of American adults are now in favor of legalizing adult use marijuana, with 94% in favor of allowing its use for medicinal purposes. This follows on a series of recent polls this year finding similar levels of support for the issue. My buddy Tom Angel over at MassRoots via the Cannabist has a good write-up on the recent findings, but in short, America is totally ready to legalize marijuana. The strong numbers in support of legal marijuana are wonderfully mirrored by the weak standing that prohibitionists find themselves in these days, with just 20% of voters being in favor of the federal government cracking down on people following state legal cannabis law. The partisanship of the issue is starting to fall away as well, with just 34% of Republicans being in favor of a federal crackdown. New Cannabis Ventures has the news of a huge round of fundraising recently completed by Green Thumb Industries, a legal marijuana company with operations in Massachusetts, Nevada, and Illinois, with eyes on immediate expansion into Pennsylvania and Ohio. As Alan Brockstein over at New Cannabis Ventures is reporting, Green Thumb Industries, also known as GTI, raised more than $50 million from high net worth individuals to support their multi-state operations, which include future plans to expand into Florida, Ohio, and Arkansas. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, MJ Today Media, publishers of this podcast, our weekly show Marijuana Today, and our popular email newsletter, the MJ Today Media Newsfeed. We design all of our media publications to be complementary to one another so that if a person is hooked into all of them, they're pretty much covered when it comes to knowing all the things they need to know about the legal marijuana industry. There's such a huge value on being fully caught up on the current state of legal cannabis, and by listening to this podcast, our weekly show Marijuana Today, and subscribing to the newsfeed, you'll reap the rewards as you make better decisions about your particular legal cannabis business. Open up mjtodaypodcast.com to catch our weekly show and mjtodaymedia.com/newsfeed to subscribe to the newsfeed email newsletter. That's mjtodaypodcast.com and mjtodaymedia.com/newsfeed. All right, time for the blitz. Marijuana activists in Massachusetts are saying that the state is going to need more than the $2 million it's budgeted so far to support the legal adult use marijuana system set to roll out next year. Jim Borghesani, a spokesperson for the campaign that put adult use through the ballot system last year, said that the software to run the state's system alone will cost nearly $6 million. State Treasurer Deb Goldberg thinks $10 million in all will be needed to fund all necessary costs for taxing and regulating legal marijuana. With the state's Cannabis Control Commission currently being formed, there's sure to be a lot of changes in the Bay State in terms of cannabis policy that we'll keep on top of. Speaking of advisory boards in Massachusetts, New England Public Radio picked up on the news that 12 out of the first 15 people appointed to the Massachusetts Cannabis Advisory Board are from towns which voted in favor of legalizing adult use cannabis last fall. Turning west to Arizona, we have news of a new legal filing in an Arizona Supreme Court case involving a state-registered medical marijuana patient attending school at Arizona State University who was busted by campus cops for having 0.4 grams of marijuana in his dorm room. Student Andre Maestas was arrested in 2014 after he told campus cops about the tiny amount of state legal cannabis he had in his dorm room. He was subsequently found guilty of drug possession, fined $1,000, and placed on unsupervised probation. Mr. Maestas' lawyer is arguing that the state had no right in the first place to make universities off limits in terms of medical marijuana use. We'll report back on this one as it resolves. Mary Jane has the news of Virginia's Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam writing a letter this week to his state's crime commission encouraging them to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of marijuana. Lieutenant Governor Northam, who is widely believed to have more gubernatorial ambitions, wrote in his letter, quote, Virginia spends $67 million on marijuana enforcement, enough to open up another 13,000 pre-K spots for children. African Americans are nearly 3 times as likely to get arrested for simple possession of marijuana, and sentencing guidelines that include jail time can all too often begin a dangerous cycle of recidivism. Unquote. This bodes well for the future of Virginia marijuana policy should Lieutenant Governor ascend to the seat above his current spot. North Dakota's Department of Health's Division of Medical Marijuana just announced that they are looking for testing labs to handle the testing phase of their medical marijuana program. You can find a link to their website at the Bismarck Tribune, which you can also find by visiting our website at mjtodaydaily.com and our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily, where we have, as always, all the links to the news we cover each day. The Bangor Daily News has a good summary up of the current state of cannabis legislation here in my neck of the woods up in Maine. In short, there's still a lot of law and rulemaking to be done when state legislators pick back up on their work in the state capital of Augusta in January. Swing on over for the full read on this one. And finally for today, the Washington Post published an editorial excoriating the state of Maryland for how badly it's implemented its medical marijuana program. This is an issue that should be familiar to regular listeners of the show, with mishaps and controversy seeming to pop up at every step as the state has issued its medical marijuana operating licenses to dispensers, cultivators, and processors. Yet another good one to dive into fully. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, MJ Today Media, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today. Today.
One take, Shay. One take.